Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Helt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Ralph Tomaso, and he is the Vice President of Marketing at First Choice Debt Solutions. Welcome, Ralph.
Hey, how's it going, Gary? What's up?
Doing good, doing good.
Oh, excited to be here.
So give us some of your background. Tell us kind of how you got over what your life was before First Choice.
Oh, so like if I look back at my career, 10 years, I never would have thought I would have ended up here. You know, I was a serial entrepreneur. About a dozen years ago, I lost a very big business, probably because of my own stupidity. We did have debt. That was the final crushing blow. And there were no resources out there. And I probably made every mistake possible, from getting, wasting, tens of thousands of dollars on attorneys, on lawsuits I couldn't win, to dealing with judgments and not knowing what to fight and what not to fight, and ending up, do I declare bankruptcy? And it was a whirlwind. So fast forward, I got into the merchant cash advance business, which is now our biggest type of debt that we deal with. So then I had that background of running an underwriting team and knowing what's behind the numbers. And then to the point where my last piece was staying around when they sold the portfolio to do all the workouts of the on non-performing deals. So that's how I ended up here.
Gotcha. So, in going through the debt management side of things, how do you pick what solution is best for the business owner or the business?
That's a great question. So when you look at sales, we try to make every sale the same.
Right.
But in debt management, it ends up being totally the opposite. So we look at, there's so many variables. So you look at the debt, what type of creditors, who are the creditors, what's the collateral, and then how much with each creditor. And then we start looking at the underlying business. What's their revenue? Is it trending up or down? What's the type of assets that the business has? And then based on all those variables, that's when we start looking at what strategy would be best. It ends up being, you end up not deciding what the right strategy is. The first thing you know is what the wrong strategy would be on those things. And then it's kind of leads you through that journey, and it's changing as the business is evolving throughout the whole workout.
Because many business owners, especially now, we went through, interest rates were low. So a lot of people were carrying a lot of debt on, either lines of credit or credit cards or whatever. And they were cycling through it. Well, some people's businesses slowed down for them. So now they're carrying a little bit more debt. And obviously that debt's more expensive now. So when we look at that, and business owners are trying to consolidate that debt or do something to get some relief to be able to have better cash flow, what solutions are out there for somebody like that?
Oh, okay. So the number one thing, you being a CPA, I'm sure you've seen this. I would say the biggest problem is, first, the entrepreneurs don't know their numbers.
Right.
So, first I look at the overall business of what's the revenue, what's the profitability, what's their assets, what collateral have they pledged against these assets? Mm-hmm. And then we start looking at the options, right? There is a consolidation where you're like doing an asset-based financing where we're putting an asset at risk that wasn't at risk. Then, we look at debt settlement, which is another strategy. I could tell you horror stories with debt settlement. Right. But then, is it bankruptcy the option? And then the last thing we look at is, if we manage the debt, and if asset-based, it's like, for example, if an asset-based sale is an option, how much debt can we raise from that asset? Is it enough to consolidate the existing debt could we consolidate that existing debt at a significant discount to offset the interest that we're paying for the new additional debt? And then overall, what additional risk are we taking on, right? We are increasing our cash flow, yes. But if we didn't fix, or the business owner doesn't fix the underlying problem,
Right.
all we're doing is kicking the can down the road and then putting a secured asset that wasn't previously at risk.
Yeah, I think we've seen that, definitely on the consumer side with people with their houses. I mean, a lot of people, it's like, okay, they run up the unsecured credit card debt and things like that, and then they take equity out of their house to pay it down. And then now, like you said, now it's secured by something. Talk a little bit about the debt settlement, because I'm going to say there's the vultures out there that do that, and I think a lot of people don't understand it.
I hear more horror stories about debt settlement than I do about merchant cash advances. So merchant cash advances are a high risk subprime lender that's selling you're selling your future receivables to them at a significant discount. Interest rates 200, 300% when you figure out the cost of money. But then you have a debt settlement company that's preying on you, on your vulnerability and your lack of knowledge. If I go back to my own experience, I had attorneys that would reach out to me and say, Ralph, they're going to, your creditors are going to regret the day they ever met you, right? So I give them $50,000 in attorney fees to fight a $1 million lawsuit that they had no chance of winning.
Right.
So then we get to court, and as we're working in this, like, okay, Ralph, what do we have to offer to pay them? And I said, I don't have anything, right? I lost a $1 million business. And they're like, well, you owe the money. So exaggerate that with a debt settlement company. What they're doing is they are, their basis is stop paying your creditors, start paying us. We're going to open up this quote unquote escrow account. We're going to start funneling your money into an escrow account. But in reality, they're front loading their fees. And these are up to 38% fees. So if you owe $100,000, they're charging a $38,000 fee, which they have to get paid first before they even touch the file. And then, if you're dealing with my wife's Macy's credit card, you're okay. But you're dealing with merchant cash advances most of the time that are very aggressive. So now you're leaving yourself open to lawsuits, judgments, UCC liens, and they're going after your credit cards. If you're a restaurant, they're going after DoorDash or Uber. If you're in construction, they'll go after your clients.
Right.
And then all that while they're funneling their fees. Look, it's a great business if you could get it, meaning collect 38% and not do anything.
Right.
Fantastic business, right? It's a great business model. But as a business owner, they're getting taken advantage of. So I try to distance myself as much as possible. I think on one of our websites, it's, we are not a debt settlement company. And at the same time, the creditors hate you.
Oh, yeah.
Because, all you're doing is you're skimming right off the top, which is theoretically their money.
Right.
You're not adding any value. And they're cold calling you. They're cold, I see, and I'm sure your clients, get these phone calls. If you owe $100,000 in debt and you're paying, $10,000 a week, we'll cut your payment to $5,000. A lot of people, when they're desperate, or even when they're not desperate, wouldn't mind saving, $5,000 a week.
Right.
But they don't look at the cost.
Right. It was scary because, again, they're preying on people that are desperate. And lots of times when you're desperate, you're going to make these mistakes. How can the business owner know if they're dealing with a reputable company that's helping them either, restructure their debt or be able to help them manage this process?
Oh, that's a great question. Because they're telling you everything you want to hear, right? If I look at my own experience, I thought, if you owed money and first of all, no entrepreneur wants to default on their debt.
Right.
right? We're all, alphas. We want to be successful. Otherwise, we would not be entrepreneurs, right? We're optimistic and we're not looking for something for nothing, but we're programmed in our head that if we owe the money, a lot of guys put their head in the sand, they ignore the problem. The creditor then files a lawsuit. You're assuming I need to answer the lawsuit, but legally, they gave you the money. If you bought $100,000 in supplies on your American Express card, American Express paid your bill.
Right.
You owe, there's no legal argument to get out of that bill. So at that point, the number one thing you like as a business owner, ask yourself, if I focus on sales, can I work my way out of this while reaching out to the creditor and making a deal with the creditor? And the creditor, whether you're American Express or ABC funding, you want to get paid.
Right.
And by conveying that and being honest and transparent, most of the time, I would say, a creditor will work with you to get you over the hump.
Now, a couple minutes ago, you talked about when you guys are working with companies, business owners and stuff, about them understanding their numbers. Can you kind of take us through that process? Everybody talks about, knowing your numbers. What do you mean by that?
So, especially when you're dealing with merchant cash advances, right? You're selling a percentage of your receivables. Mm-hmm. So I've had clients where they sold 80% of their receivables. So for every dollar you bring in, 80 cents is owed to a lender. Mm. So I don't know a business that has net 80% margins. So let's just take a typical construction company, right? If you're doing 20%. So for every dollar in revenue, you're losing 60 cents or you're getting deeper and deeper into the hole.
Right.
So the first thing you should know is on this $100,000 project, I'm going to spend $30,000 in supplies. I'm going to spend $30,000 in labor, and I'm going to spend 20% in overhead. And I have 20% on this project. If I go out and borrow $20,000 from a lender and I got to pay them back 30, and my payment schedule is, 25% of my revenue. Number one, I've given away more of my profit than I'm making. And then also think about the way a construction company's revenue comes in. It's not coming in daily.
No.
These loans are daily and weekly. And their bills go out the door. Payroll is weekly. Supplies may be net 30. Some vendors may be COD.
Right.
And it's matching, it's matching the being able to not only know your profitability, but matching your inflows with the expected outflows.
So a lot of this, it sounds like to me that if somebody's in this situation, before they even try to reach out to somebody like you guys to get help with the debt, they really need to take a look and say, okay, why am I not profitable? Because even if I come to you and you help me fix, whatever it is with the debt, get a little bit of relief, that debt's still going to be growing because I haven't fixed what the problem is.
Excellent. So if you ever read the book, right, the E-Myth Revisited, yep. Right? We talked about people are experts at bricklaying or a craft, and it doesn't make them a great businessman. And I would say the average business owner, finance is not their specialty, whether it's sales or operations, that becomes their specialty. So what I did was go out and we invested in AI and software that will very quickly figure out what your real profitability is. And sometimes, I'll be honest with you, you don't want to hear it.
Right.
It gets ugly. When times go tough, the last thing you want to do is open up your checking account and see what your balance is. Right. Your question of what do you need to come to somebody like me is you got to be ready to make some changes. And for me, I start with let me see the contracts first. How much you got funded? What'd you put up as collateral? How much is the payback? What do expected balances? What do you think the estimated balances are? And then give me 6 to 12 months of bank statements. And then knowing that your average small business owner, is, and again, your clients, whether, how many of your clients are staying day to day up with QuickBooks, or how many guys are looking at their checking account and seeing how much they could flow for the next couple of days. So we'll go back 6 to 12 months using, our software that we developed that will look at inflows and outflows and take out loans and take out transfers and take out, non-true income, and really look at the profitability of the business, and then have a conversation with the owner and saying, does 8% sound about right? And, a lot of times it's like, wow, I thought it was, I was running the business at 20.
Right.
And then for us, we're looking to juggle this information with then going back to a creditor and saying, hey, in order for you to, if we keep the thing status quo, your risk of default is inevitable. So then if you can work with the merchant, not only, I don't care what everybody says, the creditors worry about the creditor and the merchants worry about the merchant. If the creditor, we're selling to the creditor, a restructuring is going to lower his risk of default and increase his return on capital. And then for the merchant, if you are humble and you are willing to make some changes, and these are minor tweaks, and you focus on the business, don't use the relief to waste it. If you take that relief and invest it back in the business at your internal rate of return, we're going to help you grow your way out of this.
Right. Right. And I think that's one of the big things that people don't think about. It's like, okay, I got myself in this situation because it wasn't one thing. It's never one thing. It's always a few different things. And you have to create major change to get yourself out of it. It may be small tweaks here and there, but for you, because you've been ingrained in doing the same thing over and over and over again, you have to do massive change to get you to stop doing that same thing over and over again.
Yeah. We mentioned before the business owner is a major optimist.
Yeah.
They always say, oh, I got one more project I'm going to get out of this. But there's always delays. There's always problems, and I don't know if a lot of your clients have seen it, but they start trying to borrow their way out of it,
yes,
which keeps digging themselves deeper into a hole.
Yeah. When somebody's trying to go through this process, what are some of the major mistakes that you see them making, or some of the common mistakes you see them making?
Oh, the first thing, just because you're really good at business, and if you built a very successful business, does not mean you know how to do everything, right? The homeowner, if he watches a YouTube video on how to fix a couple of shingles on his roof, doesn't make him a roofer.
Right.
Right. So it's funny. My dad was sick. He's 89 years old. He was sick in February, and the doctor was talking about a major surgery, but he turned to me and said, look, he'll the surgery I don't recommend, because it's not that he's going to die on the table. There's a guarantee of bumps in the road that he's not going to be able to handle. I was drawing parallels to the entrepreneur, guaranteed. But are you going to be able to deal with the bumps in the road coming up on the same time of running the business, dealing with inflation, dealing with supply chain issues, dealing with employees, and all these other areas that are guaranteed going to interfere with your three creditors trying to grab as much money as they can out of your bank account while you're trying to run your business?
Right.
That's where thinking that they could do it themselves or do it without like a guiding hand.
Yeah. I think lots of times business owners, especially those that are, I'm going to say, are good tacticians that have become business owners, think that we can always work our way out by working harder. I think sometimes that just actually digs the hole even deeper. for us because, you end up losing a lot of other things around you because of that. In going through this, what kind of impact does this have on a business's credit and business owner's credit?
Oh, I've talked to business owners that before they started getting into trouble, they had 750 credit score, never thinking they would brag to me, but I've never been in this situation. And I would have to say is the first thing that takes a hit is every business owner is going to start using their personal credit to fund the business when they're in trouble, which destroys any chance of getting cheap credit to get themselves out of it, right? So the first thing that takes a hit, personal credit. The way I always recommend it is first, where people make mistakes is they don't do it in the right order, right? Okay. So if you take a step back, and money is emotional, right? This is a very emotional time. So first, protect what you have, start coming up with a plan to pay down this debt as painlessly as possible, but it's going to be painful. 3, then you have to start repairing, using whatever free cash flow is to pay down any personal debt as well. Okay. And that will allow you access to get cheaper capital, which will then accelerate it'll give you more cost savings. If you could pay off your business debt in lump sums from inexpensive capital, and then start rebuilding your business and focus on sales 100% of the time. When you talk about your typical client could work out of this, that's great, but not great if whatever you're making plus 20% is walking out the door behind you. So you have to close up a lot of those holes before you even start working.
Right. How do you guys coach someone through that? Because again, I think that's the problem that a lot of business owners make. It's like, they got the money coming in the front door. They're working so hard to get it to come in, but they're not paying attention to what's going out the back door. And it's, like I said, they're just digging a deeper hole. How do you guys help coach them, or do you refer them to a CPA or somebody else to help them with that side of things? How do you guys manage that?
Most of the time when we first start, they're so in the weeds that they can't pick up their head, right? So, we know the profitability. Nobody knows their business better than them, right? They know for every dollar that they put into that business with no stress and no headache, they're going to turn that dollar into $1.20 at the end of the month. So, but all that has to be, number one, trusting the right people, right? Winning somebody's trust. And, they say like the best way to help somebody, to show that you can help somebody, is just help them first.
Right.
So we first start giving them small wins and then build their trust over time to show that, look, we did this, now you leverage it. And then continue giving them more wins so they can continue to leverage it, and show very quickly. And I can't tell you how many times, once they get some breathing room, they go back to their old ways.
Right.
The pain has stopped. Yep. And it's staying on top of them on a weekly basis to reinforce focusing on sales, keeping the creditors out of your checking account, staying on top of cash, monitoring how much is going out the door. And they get defensive, like this is their show. Yeah. And again, there's we talked before about debt settlement companies. There's a lot of horror stories. So they really don't, most of the time they don't even know who to trust.
I think that's a big piece, not knowing who to trust. And that's why I like what you said about with the debt settlement companies, because I think a lot of people didn't understand that, hey, look, they're setting up this account, they're funding this escrow account, but they're taking their fees out and they're not going to do any negotiating or anything until they get paid in full. And it's just like, well, a lot of people don't understand that because they're thinking, oh, well, I'm paying money there. They're working with these companies. Well, come to find out, your credit's taking a huge hit because no payments are being made. So it's like missed payment. So my credit's getting worse, not better, because of this. I know you could talk.
That's the least of it. They would be happy if it was just their credit.
Right. Before we wrap up, give me one of your success stories.
Oh yeah. When I first started this, every big win I had, I thought I should have wore a cape. I should have been rose petals, should have been thrown at my feet. And in the end, it really relies on the business owner, right? So like I had, a couple of years ago, I had a guy, he had employees embezzle $500,000 from his business.
Oh.
He had a fantastic business. It was an e-commerce business, $200,000 a month. The guy was having very easy life. He ends up, they were funneling the money that they were stealing. They were putting on his American Express card until they cut the credit. So now he gets sued by American Express, $280,000. His business was destroyed from $200,000 a month to $10,000 a month. So is gone. His employees gone, business gone, Google AdWords account destroyed. He basically has to start the whole business from scratch. And he's got almost a $300,000 note on top of his head with 2 lawsuits, one in Arizona and one in New York. So, and again, creditors are, always believing that you're keeping their money under the mattress. So number one, we had to fight 2 lawsuits, prove that the money was not there. We ended up 10 months later settling with American Express for $80,000 spread out over 2 years, interest-free. I go back to him and I'm like, oh my God, Bob, you'll never believe it. Look how much money I saved you. And in the end, he was like, look, Ralph, great. But, in those 10 months that you didn't hear from me, I went back and rebuilt the business, $300,000 a month, 50% better profitability. And then within 2 months of us getting a settlement, he had a lump sum, which ended up making us go back to American Express for a lower amount. I thought I was the hero. He was way more effective being able to use that moat we built around the business.
Yeah.
And I would have to say one of our more recent guys with the run up in inflation and the interest rates, he was a small niche player in the construction supply company, $500,000 a month in sales, dropped to $300,000, but he had $400,000 in these merchant cash advances, paying $30,000 a week.
Wow.
In debt with 6 lenders. And he said because he had such huge profit margins, it was never an issue. But when it dropped, we sold the argument to the lenders, an honest argument that sales have dropped, profitability is almost non-existent. We lowered the payments from $30,000 a week to $7,500 a week, which is still a 75% discount. And then over the course of 4 months, now he's running the business at a break even or slightly profitable. It gave him a clear head to find another $30,000 a month in profit margin. Fast forward 10 months later, we lowered the debt by $100,000 by negotiating lump sum settlements. And his payment is down to $3,000 a week as we're on with the last creditor. So 5 out of 6 were already paid off. And we have one more that where he's paying at $3,000 a week. So it was a big from $30,000 a week to $3,000 a week and $100,000 less in debt. So that was good.
But people like what they hear and they want to talk to you. How can they reach out to you?
Oh, great. Yeah. So go to businessdebtexpert.com, click on the calendar link, and you could book an appointment with me there, or you could send me your contracts and bank statements. You could black out any sensitive information. I don't need that. And then what we'll do is, I'll do a full video analysis. We have calculators that will give you implied interest rates, your cost of capital. And then we'll also look at, based on your business and its profit margin, we'll give you what the return on capital would be or what your expected revenue would be if you reinvested those savings back into your business. So then I'll send your clients like a video, a couple of minute video of while we do a full analysis of what is possible.
Gotcha. Hey, I really appreciate your help today. I think that talking about this is really going to help spark some things with some of these business owners. And if they didn't get anything, don't go to a debt settlement company. But I think that what you guys do can really help the business owner, even if they're not in huge problems, but, get to you before they become huge.
I think you really hit the nail on the head with this. That whole thing is don't wait till it's too late.
Right. Right. Great. Appreciate your time this week.
Oh, no, I appreciate you having me. Good
Great.
luck to all your clients.
Thank you. Hey, this week our guest was Ralph Tomaso, and he's the Vice President of Marketing at First Choice Debt Solutions. I'll see you guys next week.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.